Welcome to the Enjoy a Cancer-Free Life podcast with Dr. Ted Koren, best-selling author of Cancer is Natural, So is the Cure. More than care for patients, Dr. Koren transforms lives. He teaches people an all-natural way to heal from and address the causes of cancer using the tools we all have within ourselves. On the podcast, Dr. Koren interviews other thought leaders in natural healing who share insights and information to help you live longer and better.
I'm speaking to Sally Fallon Morell. Did I say it right?
Sally Fallon Morell,
The Executive Director and CEO of the Weston Price Foundation. And I have to tell you that you've been one of my heroes, one of my mentors. I've learned so much from you. And I'm sure I'm one of, if not thousands, tens of or hundreds of thousands of people who have found what the work you've done in nutrition, promoting Dr. Weston Price's work and expanding it to be incredibly invaluable. So just right up front, I'd like to say.
Well, thank you, Ted. You know, so much of what we've been advocating for the last 20 years has kind of seeped into society. And so people realize that broth is good for you, that fermented foods are good for you, that butter is actually good for you. And a lot of people have heard of these things, not realizing where they come from. So I guess that's a nice thing to have happen. Yeah.
I have a very powerful question for you that I have not heard answered before. Where did you grow up? Tell us how you became Sally Fallon.
I grew up in Southern California. My dad worked for an aerospace company, and then I lived in Los Angeles for quite a while, went to California schools, and only later, I think it was in 1990, that we moved out to the East Coast. And it was actually that same year that I started writing Nourishing Traditions.
So how did you get involved in the whole nutritional side of it?
I feel like the universe kind of just pulled me into it. I only took one biology course in my whole life, and that was in high school, and I didn't like the teacher. So my background's in English literature. But I think one thing that might set me apart from most of the other people who do write about nutrition is that I really love to cook. You can ask people, I'm a pretty good cook. And
I've experienced it. Yes, absolutely.
And I came to this from that side of it, cooking for a large family, and you know they're your harshest critics. So you have, if they don't like it, it's no point in cooking it. And I had read Dr. Price's book in the 70s and applied his dietary principles to my own family, and then I got this idea of writing a cookbook that would put his principles into practical form.
And that's the book, Nourishing Traditions.
Right.
Excellent. I use it as my cookbook, too.
Oh, thank you.
But you know what? Because we're speaking to a group of people that may not know about Dr. Price, I know you've explained this so many times. Would you mind giving a short synopsis of your research?
So Dr. Price was a dentist in the 30s and 40s, and he had this idea of traveling around the world to visit isolated peoples to see what their dental health was like. That's what he was really interested in.
What inspired that? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think he was just asking the question, why are my own patients so sick? Why do I see dental deformities, that's crowded teeth? Why am I seeing so many cavities in people? He had a nephew who worked for the National Geographic, and the reports coming back from these isolated people was they had perfect teeth, beautiful, straight white teeth, everybody in the tribe or village.
Now, this was a time in human history when indigenous peoples were being discovered to exist in various remote parts of the world, I assume?
Yes, we knew for a long time that indigenous people existed. When the Europeans came to the New World, they found these beautiful people with beautiful teeth, and they wrote about that. A lot of people commented on that. But in Dr. Price's day, you had the camera, new invention, and you had people traveling to really remote areas and coming back with the same impression. These people have beautiful teeth, and they don't seem to be sick, and the children seem to be healthy. So Dr. Price wanted to find out for himself if this was true. And then what he was interested in was what kind of diet gave these groups such good health as measured by their dental health. So that's what he did. He went all over the world and he found all these different groups, and the diets were very different. The diet of the people in Alaska was different from the diet of the people in the South Seas, and the people in the Alps ate differently from, people in South America. So what we've tried to do at the Weston A. Price Foundation is show the commonalities of all these diets. And the main commonality was that the diets were very nutrient dense. They were really high in minerals, but more importantly, they were high in what we call the fat-soluble activators, or the fat-soluble vitamins. These are vitamins A, D, and K. And the main sources of these vitamins are the foods they're telling us not to eat. So butter, animal fats, organ meats like liver, certain types of seafood, fish eggs, egg yolks, raw milk and raw cheese, cultured milk. So all of these foods need to be in our diet. So part of our educational effort is kind of undoing all the fear that's been built into people over the last 100 years, the fear of animal fats and the fear of high cholesterol foods.
I see that Dr. Price as sort of an empirical scientist.
Yes, he was.
He didn't want to figure out the best diet for humanity. And Lord knows we have so many diets and fads. He just said, where are the people incredibly healthy and what are they eating?
Yes.
And that makes perfect sense. You go where there's where it's already being done. No, they're not scientists maybe, but they have traditions, as you write, nourishing traditions that work.
Well, any so-called primitive culture, any culture that we consider poor or primitive or whatever, isolated, when they kill an animal, nothing goes to waste. They eat the whole animal. They eat the organs, they eat the blood, they eat the skin, they eat the fat, they eat the brain, the liver. So none of these things go to waste. And I think our job in the modern age is to make these types of foods acceptable to the modern person. And European countries know how to do this. They make blood sausage, for example, which is absolutely delicious. It's called black pudding in England. They make pate, they make liverwurst, they make liver sausage. They know how to take these really nutrient-dense parts of the animal and turn them into something that everyone will want to eat.
Well, just to go on a slight tangent, I've watched your video, and I love your Pate Story.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind telling us that?
Yeah, so my mother was a very good cook, and I grew up in a household with a pretty good diet. It was real food. We always had butter, but it certainly wasn't as good as my parents' diet, who grew up on raw milk and ate liver every week and so forth. So I did have health problems. I needed braces to straighten my teeth, a lot of fatigue, a lot of allergies. And I was going to school in France my sophomore year in college, and for the first time in my life, I went to the little cafe up the street, and they were selling something called terrine. Now, terrine is sort of like pate. It's like a coarse meatloaf that you eat it cold. It's really fatty, and it's got liver in it, and deliciously seasoned. So I ordered this terrine, and it was the most delicious thing I had ever eaten in my life. I just couldn't believe how delicious this was, and satisfying. So I kind of went crazy and just ate terrine or pate as often as I could. I'd go up to this little cafe and have it. And it's like I couldn't get enough of it. And it was because my body was very depleted. I didn't have enough vitamins A and D. I didn't have enough vitamin K. And my health began to improve. And when I went back, I made a point of eating chicken livers as often as I could. But what's interesting is when I first tasted this terrine, I just went crazy. Couldn't eat enough. And over time, my need for pate is less because I'm more replete with nutrients. And now when I have my chicken liver pate or whatever, I can eat 2 or 3 tablespoons, and that's it. That's all I can eat. So that just shows me that my body knows I've had enough and I'm not depleted.
Now, that actually tells us something very interesting, that a person could intuitively, just by taste alone, know what they need.
Yes, but big if there. First of all, they've got to taste the food. Now, in my case, I just had never had access to that kind of food before. But secondly, suppose I had said to myself, well, you can't eat this. This is full of fat and cholesterol, and you shouldn't eat this. And that's what happens. People love the taste of butter. They'll eat butter when they go to a restaurant as a kind of a treat, but they quote unquote know they shouldn't eat butter. So most of the time they use margarine or spreads or whatever. So part of it is being able to discern, to have discernment about what is just advertising propaganda and what's not.
And that's really a cultural way of looking at things.
Well, for the last 100 years, the vegetable oil industry, the food industry really has been trying to inculcate the idea that if you eat lard, that's vulgar, and if you eat butter, you should feel guilty, and that for your good health, you need to eat these vegetable oil products.
They did a great job.
They did an amazing job. Some of their early stuff is in advertising textbooks, as examples of how good their advertising was. They knew how to punch the buttons, so to speak, push the buttons of the American housewife. They told her that if she used margarine instead of lard, her house was cleaner, it smelled better, and
it's cheaper.
She was more modern, she was more thrifty, and her children would grow up with better characters than people who ate lard. Now, they knew what was on the minds of the American housewife.
I have a book that was written originally in Yiddish, and they wrote similar books in Italian and other languages for immigrants, telling them that if you really wanted to eat like an American, use Crisco, for example.
Well, that's right. And the first group they targeted was the Jews, because they said if you use Crisco, you can have your food laws, your what.
That's right. You could kosher laws of kosher.
Kosher. You could do your kosher food rules, but still have something that looked like butter.
Right, because it wasn't dairy.
Right.
And it was synthetic. I guess the kosher laws didn't pertain to petroleum products.
I guess not. They didn't pertain to food that wasn't actually food. Right.
I was lucky. I was brought up with my grandmother, who lived downstairs from us in Brooklyn, had a chicken market.
Oh, really?
And
so we had a lot of schmaltz. Yeah.
Schmaltz, exactly. I always remember that large jar of deep yellow schmaltz that I put on everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and nobody thought there was anything wrong with it. Yeah.
No, I didn't know cholesterol was bad for me.
Yeah, right.
What did I know? But I have to tell you, I learned about the Weston Price work when I was in, of all places, Gibraltar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The doctor, he was a British doctor. He was living in Gibraltar. He invited me to come and lecture to his organization, and he gave me the book.
Oh my, how nice.
It was an incredible gift. And I looked at it. It's not a little book. And I said, I thought, you think I'm going to read this? But my God, it was captivating.
Yeah, it is a captivating book.
And the photos were so amazing, even within the same families when they changed diets.
Right. So I did not grow up with a Weston Price diet. It wasn't a particularly bad diet, but it wasn't really nutrient-dense diet. But I imposed that on my kids. Mainly, I would sneak liver into things, and they had lots of cream and butter and eggs, and not one of my children needed to have their teeth straightened. So I reversed that in one generation because I needed braces.
Well, I can ask another question regarding that. What really turned me on to talking about this was years ago, I was in my dentist's office, and the thought struck me, why do people need to have their wisdom teeth taken out?
Yes.
How come there's no room anymore. I mean, my parents didn't, my grandparents didn't.
Right.
Suddenly, everyone is having them taken out.
Yeah. My dad used to sit at the dinner table and he said, I just don't understand it. Your mom and I have naturally straight teeth and perfect eyesight. How come all you kids need braces and glasses?
I am so
And I
sorry.
guess that him saying that, he said it several times at the dinner table, and he was kind of like the autocrat of the dinner table. He was very interesting and amusing, and tried to teach us stuff and so forth. But that question must have lingered in my mind, because here I've been one of the voices for answering the question.
Well, you have been, and I think it's not only poor nutrition that gives us not enough room for our wisdom teeth, but pelvises that cannot permit a woman to deliver a baby properly.
Right. The whole body is more narrow, so the nasal passages are more narrow, which makes them more, prone to infections. The ears are not formed exactly right, so there's more hearing problems. Dr. Price talked about the lungs. He said if the nutrition is bad during the formation and the growing years of the child, the lungs will not be formed properly, and that's what makes people get TB. It wasn't an organism. It was the fact that the lungs were not healthy from the beginning. And then the body will be more lean. You tend to see very tall, skinny growth in kids who have plenty of protein but are not getting the fat-soluble vitamins and enough fats. And then as you say, the pelvic opening, instead of being round, which is what it's supposed to be, that's the right shape for the baby to get through. It's going to be oval or elliptical, and that makes childbearing very painful and often life-threatening.
When I spoke to my dentist about this,
what did he say?
Why is there no room for our wisdom teeth? I was a novice at this.
Yeah.
And he said, do you know about Weston Price?
Oh, yeah.
He's a holistic dentist. And although I knew not to have mercury and things like that, I did not know really of Weston Price's work. I had not read his book yet.
Yeah. And what we recommend, if your child does have a narrow face and overbite, the teeth seem to be crooked, we recommend a technique that actually widens the palate. It doesn't put braces on the teeth, but with a wire in the back, it widens the whole dental palate, so it leaves more space for the teeth to come in and the wisdom teeth to come in.
What's the name of that technique?
Would
a holistic dentist know about
but just palate widening is what you were going to ask for.
And would any dentist or just a holistic dentist?
No, there's a couple of organizations, and if you go to our website, look under Web Watch, where they're posted there.
We're going to have it recorded what your website is and how to contact your organization. I do remember in the Nutrition and Physical Degeneration book, Dr. Price, I think it was there, he had a child with Down syndrome. And he in the palate, and they became relatively normal, I believe.
Well, what happened was this child was looked retarded, and they widened the palate, and he learned to read. He seemed quite normal, but then he started going through puberty, and he had absolutely no control over himself, and he became very aggressive towards the girls, and they asked him to narrow the palate again so that he wouldn't be this way. So they were able to correct certain things, but deeper injuries, such as on the hypothalamus or whatever, which is the seat of impulse control, they were not able to correct.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, thank you.
He says that in there kind of delicately, because I guess this guy became a real aggressive kind of monster when he became a teenager.
Well, that's pretty standard for teenagers.
Yeah, we're right. And mostly they rejoin the human race later on.
What they say that having a teenager makes you understand why some animals eat their young.
Oh.
But the book that...
But I will say this, Ted.
Yeah.
On this diet, the teenage years are a lot better. Honestly, my kids, they got into trouble. In fact, they were very, very active and lively kids, but it wasn't a period of, angst and depression or anything like that. They were just fun, loving, curious, got into trouble, but it wasn't like, this huge conflict with the parents.
I think that this had been written about by Price. When he'd go to all these villages, he said they barely ever heard a baby crying.
Right. You
And
never heard a baby crying, and things were harmonious.
Yeah, there was a respect for the elders. And
very much so. And also the young people, they knew a few things. Well, the young people were given jobs to do. But when it came to the puberty rituals and all that, they were never done by the parents. It was always the elders who did those rituals and transition ceremonies. Because one thing that's true in a modern society or a primitive society, teenagers don't listen to their parents. So they knew that much.
It must be in their programming.
Yeah, it must be in our programming. Yeah, well, it is, I think, because we do break out in the teenage years. I mean, behaviorally, and that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah.
So the book I'm highlighting is Cancer is Natural, So is the Cure. And when I gave a lecture on this, you were very helpful in talking about anti-cancer, or we're saying we're not fighting cancer. Cancer is natural. The body, it's the way the body sequesters poisons or toxins. Tumors come and go throughout our lives.
They do, and they encapsulate toxins.
So the question is, some tumors don't seem to go away, and there's probably a good reason why. You had talked about this.
Right, and I loved your book, Ted, because it was very simple. It very good at expelling fear. If you're going to be afraid, it's going to be a lot harder for your body. And then you just carefully went through all the things that people needed to do to clean up their bodies, clean up their environment, and then some other types of treatments. I thought it was a really nice book.
Thank you. And you had specifically highlighted vitamin A, I believe?
Yes, so vitamin A would be the number one vitamin for cancer. It's been used successfully to treat tumors in animals. Vitamin A is what tells our stem cells what to do. And so when you have cancer, you have these cells that are out of control. And that's vitamin A's job, is to keep everything in control, in boundaries in the body. And we all do have stem cells all through our lives. This is kind of a new revelation to scientists. And they're there to heal our body, to replace worn out cells, to replace cancerous cells. And without vitamin A, they don't know where to go or what to do.
So high in vitamin A or in needed amounts of vitamin A would actually help people rejuvenate or wake up their own stem cells and naturally.
Yes, absolutely. And also give you very nice skin. So of course, we're big on cod liver oil. And the nice thing about cod liver oil is that it has vitamin D also. And A and D are the twins, and they're not the evil twins, they're the good twins. You need them both together. And I'm very concerned about people taking huge amounts of vitamin D and not having enough vitamin A, because that can lead to problems. So the cod liver oil, in the old days, Americans up to the Second World War, they had liver at least once a week because the doctors told them to eat liver. So your best liver is poultry liver, because it's a nice balance of A, D, and then the third one is K. Calf's liver is very high in A and not in D. So you would cook your calf's liver in lard, which is very rich in vitamin D. And then you have them both together. I had a Hungarian lady tell me that she said, when I was growing up in Hungary, we only ate liver if it was cooked in lard. We felt that it was missing something if it wasn't cooked in lard.
This goes back to the original work of Dr. Price, that people seem to have an instinctive knowledge of what they need.
They did. Now, we've lost that, Ted. We don't have that instinct anymore. That's what it means to become civilized. We're more about using our brains and doing science and all this. I love to talk about the marriage of ancestral wisdom and modern technology. And that's what I like to see.
Yeah, in some ways, I think our civilization is like teenagers. We're
Yeah,
still rejecting.
well, I have often said that, actually, Ted. We're in our teenage years. We make a lot of mistakes. We're very impulsive. We do a lot of things that hurt our bodies. So we need to learn to respect our elders, and that means the wisdom of our ancestors. You know, I have a book called the Nourishing Traditions Book of Baby and Child Care, and in the introduction, I talk about this guy named Dr. Holt, and this is Dr. Holt, and one of the things he said in his book on bringing up children, he said to the parents, "Don't believe anything your mother tells you or your grandparents tell you." It's just old superstition.
No, really?
Old wives' tales. Yes. So there was actually a concerted effort to break us away from these ancestral traditions.
So it's only the wisdom that's been generated from thousands of years of experience.
Right.
He ends up there and says, "Oh, just forget about it."
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say experience. I think they just knew. If you went into a primitive tribe and asked them why they ate liver, they would laugh at you. Because why would you ask such a stupid question? You know, isn't it obvious that we should eat liver? What I like is that modern science has validated this ancestral tradition or this ancestral wisdom that they just knew by instinct.
And this wisdom that you're bringing forth in your work is really not, as I have to tell, not just for cancer, but it's for whole body health, mental and physical health.
Yes. But getting back to the subject of cancer, so yes, you want that vitamin A and vitamin D together. So it would be cod liver oil, or it would be liver, egg yolks, certain seafoods.
I see fermented butter oil advertised, or is it a combination of butter oil and cod liver oil?
Well, that's what Dr. Price did. He gave what he called high vitamin cod liver oil, but he found it didn't work as well unless he added this, what he called high vitamin butter oil, which was butter that had been centrifuged so that just got the oil part of the butter, and that's where all the vitamins concentrated.
That's that ghee, right?
It's not really ghee, but butter will do also. It's just not as concentrated. And another good source of vitamin K is emu oil. So you want all three of those together for the best effects. You can do it with food also. I mean, aged cheddar cheese has vitamin K in it. Egg yolks have vitamin K. And poultry liver is really high in vitamin K. Also duck fat, that chicken fat that you loved as a child, that's a great source of vitamin K.
You know, one of the things I think I've learned from your work is that it's not a matter of just getting the food, it's the quality of the food that's so important.
Quality and how it's prepared also. We talk a lot about grains. Our ancestors ate grains, but they didn't seem to have such problems with grains the way modern people do. And that's because, first of all, these grains were not sprayed with Roundup. They were, natural grains. And they always prepared them by soaking, sprouting, sour leavening, sourdough. In effect, it's a type of fermentation of the grains, so that all of the parts of the grains that are really difficult to digest or even irritating will be neutralized. And then the grains are a good, nutritious food for us.
Well, this is a perfect time. The time has gone really fast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So I'd like people to know, where can they go to learn more about you and what you do?
Okay, so our main website is westonaprice.org. westonaprice.org. We also have a website called realmilk.com, which helps you find raw milk. And my own website is nourishingtraditions.com.
Excellent. You've helped so many people, and you've helped me to make this podcast really interesting. Thank you. And
thanks so much for having me, Ted. And I know it's going to be a really great series of podcasts.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.